That's the amount every year that it is estimated by the American Association of Certified Fraud Examiners in their report to the nations is stolen each year through fraud. Fraud affects everyone. We often think of it as something that only matters to big businesses or people who own their own companies, but it can happen to anyone. Churches, small businesses, family businesses, volunteer organizations, even organizations like Toastmasters. Fraud can happen to anyone, and it can happen anywhere. And because of that, I want to talk about two parts of fraud: the how and the why. To start off with, I want to talk about the how. How does it happen? According to the report on the nations, all different types of fraud fall into three categories: asset misappropriation, corruption, and financial statement fraud. We'll start off with the first one, asset misappropriation. Most of us don't know asset misappropriation as asset misappropriation. We usually just call it stealing, because that's what it is. It's sort of like when people say that a store has shrinkage. What actually means is, when stuff is walking out the door, someone stole it. That's asset misappropriation. But it's not always just someone stealing merchandise. One of the cases that I read about was in a book called Contemporary Auditing by Michael Knapp. This particular case was at a business called the Goodner Brothers. The Goodner Brothers sold tires, and they had a number of different locations throughout the region. They were across a couple of different states, and they sold tires. The regional manager was in charge of tire sales for that area. One of their local managers was close friends with the brothers. He was raised with them, and they trusted him. And he also had a gambling problem. To finance his gambling problem, what he did was he sold tires just like he was supposed to, except the money did not go back to the company. The money went to the poker table. He would take tires out of the inventory, sell them to customers, and then take the money. This could have been prevented had the brothers been doing regular counts of the tires, had auditors come in and do tire counts, but they trusted him, and their trust was in vain. And that brings us to a very important point. Trust is not a control. As Ronald Reagan said, trust, but verify. Trust is great, but it's not the same thing as knowing that all your tires are actually there. And trust is what brings us to the second type of fraud, corruption. Asset misappropriation is the biggest type, 85%, but it's not the most expensive. Usually an asset misappropriation case is in the thousands of dollars range. Corruption can be much, much larger. Usually, when we think of the word corruption, we think of something like a politician, a government official, somebody who runs something big like Enron. But corruption can happen anywhere that there's power, because what corruption is someone using their own power for inappropriate personal gain. So let me give you an example of corruption. Let's say, Toastmaster Ebert, that you are in charge of making sure that the church building, the Unitarian Church downtown, is taken care of. And one of the parts of that is making sure that the lawn is taken care of. Everything's mowed, landscapes kept up. And you've received bids from several different companies, including mine. Now, one of the other companies has given you a much lower bid, and you've seen their work, and it's quite good. My work isn't that good, and it's more expensive. But I'll do all your personal landscaping for free as well if you give me the job. What you have is an opportunity to commit the type of fraud that is corruption. It can happen anywhere. The third type of fraud is one that seems very far removed from us, but it's also the one that's the most expensive to the economy as a whole, and that's financial statement fraud. The most famous case of that most people think of is Enron. Enron was a huge case of financial statement fraud. What it really boils down to is lying to people about the financial situation of your company. Toastmaster fight. What if I told you I have an investment opportunity for you? My company makes $1 million a year. We have about $100,000 in debt, and we are looking at making more money every year from this point out. How interested are you in investing?
Wow, that sounds great.
You are a victim of financial statement fraud.
Man.
I am poor. I live in an apartment, I go to college, and I have no company. That is financial statement fraud. It's usually not quite that blatant, but that's an example of what it looks like. And while it seems like it might not affect you, it can, especially with retirement accounts. If you've invested in a company that commits financial statement fraud, you might be buying shares of something that you think is great, like Home Depot, when it may actually be an Enron. These three types of fraud all are committed by people everywhere. And I believe that the more you know about them, the better you're able to prevent them. Fraud is scary. Fraud is dangerous. But knowledge is power when it comes to fraud.